C1, and I'll turn to the city clerk to start calling names for people that have signed up to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. On item C1, Ramsey Bissek, Sarah Lambert, Michael Keel, Christina Tremmel. Please state your name and begin speaking.
Hello, council members. I'm Ramsey Bissek. I'm a senior software engineer with Austin Fire. I'm speaking today in my personal capacity as a union member and as the chair of our petition team for the Stop Oats campaign. After many months of AFSCME meetings where members were repeatedly reporting their concerns over the Oats initiative, we created a petition 2 months ago to prove that the City of Austin workers are against this consolidation. I believe right now you're getting passed out our petition along with 807 employees who have signed stating their opposition to this consolidation. Our petition is demanding that this consolidation cease, that the city stops wasting money on consultants, and that the city work with frontline employees to identify ways to save money that does not disrupt operations. There are 807 reasons to stop the consolidation, from 38 different departments, covering every department with more than 100 staff members. Austin Energy is by far our most vocal department with 132 signatures. We also have strong representation from departments affected by phase 1 of the consolidation, with 408 signatures from those departments, and 64 signatures from public safety departments specifically, where IT staff members from those departments will be completely consolidated as it stands right now. The city's public servants don't want to be consolidated, and they don't want their coworkers to be consolidated. The next speakers will detail a fraction of the 807 reasons to stop this risky and unproven consolidation plan. We are asking that City Council vote to hold city management responsible to the greatest extent possible and to stop the consolidation. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sadie Lambert, District Number 1, 14-year employee of the City of Austin. I'm a lowly middle manager with an MBA, and for the first time in 14 years, I have come to you guys as a concerned citizen. Thanks to intentional misdirection from people with fancier job titles than mine, there seems to be continuing confusion among our fellow residents, the media, and even you, esteemed council members, about what exactly we're concerned with. So before completing this silly, condescending messaging continues, we want to make one thing clear. Dudes and dudettes, we are for saving millions. We are against dangerous chaos. Here's a simple chart that my friend in District 8 made. She's 10 years old. This is a picture of apps. We have too many apps at the City of Austin. We double purchased a bunch of the same ones or bought different ones that do the same thing. Fewer apps save millions of dollars. Yay! Yes for apps consolidation. This is a picture of humans. Humans work for individual departments because those departments have individual legal requirements, regulatory needs, security needs, and strategic goals. Plucking up all the people from their jobs and stuffing them all into one department is bad. That's what we're against. That saves $0. So far, it has cost a strategically undisclosed portion of $4 million. And whenever has making a government department double its size been more efficient? So, union, let's all say it together. Apps consolidation saves money. Apps consolidation is good. Cramming people together costs millions of dollars and is ineffective. Cramming people together is...
Thank you.
On item C1, Jill Lemescu, Brian Weldon, Duncan Curtis, Braniff Davis. Please state your name and begin speaking.
Whoever wants to begin, just feel free.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of City Council, City Manager and City Attorney. My name is Duncan Curtis. I am an IT infrastructure engineer at the City of Austin and one of the over 800 city workers who are opposed to the One ATS project. Now, firstly, I really do acknowledge the financial position the city's in and that we're not against change nor against making efficiencies. We also understand that the council and city manager have to make some difficult decisions. However, the city cannot afford to make another public mistake, and it may be about to make a big one. Workers across the city have regularly pointed out that this is moving forward without the necessary safeguards in place. Let me put it in Texan terms. This is akin to running your Longhorns through a China store. Now, this is something you should never, ever do, but if you do, you need to jolly well make sure you do a lot of preparation, put up plenty of guardrails and plenty of safeguards. Yet, on the 29th of April, we received a memo which continuing the same move fast and break things approach, where city management is saying that the consolidation will move forward and safeguards will not be refined until after the transfers. This is a public organisation. It's a city council. It's not a tech bro startup. Key issues like validating services, ownership, access, operational dependencies, governance, training needs and support models remain unresolved. These critical issues need to be put in place before the largest reorganisation in Austin's history, not after. Putting the cart before the horse was never a good idea.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Braniff Davis, and I'm a wildfire scientist at the Austin Fire Department. I'm speaking today in my personal capacity as an active member of AFSCME. Today, during Public Service Recognition Week, we are here to stand up for hundreds of city employees. I wish to speak about the risks that One ATS poses for public safety in Austin. ATS and the Gardner Report have treated public safety IT staff as plug-and-play personnel who can easily be consolidated. We are subject matter experts first and foremost who specialize in specific needs. We cannot be moved around so carelessly. I'm a wildfire scientist, but because the city has no nuance in its job titles, I am only an IT specialist in the eyes of ATS and the Gardner Report. The exemption carved out by the Gardner Report for operational technology is so specific and antiquated that it does not include people like me. I report to a fire chief, and I am available at a moment's notice. I manage our city's situational awareness platform, which firefighters use to collect information 24/7 during an emergency, and was made in-house and saved the city over $300,000 a year, I might add. By every logical definition, we are operational technology. ATS and the Gardner Report did not consider or ask any of our chiefs or managers about the integral role we serve. I constantly receive feedback from our fire chiefs questioning how IT staff centralization makes our work for Austinites more optimized, efficient, or effective, and even the AFA president yesterday spoke to the Public Safety Commission against this item. So why isn't ATS listening to our public safety experts? Furthermore, the Phase 1 rollout includes public safety IT specialists. While it is sold as improved service delivery, it feels foolish to put specialists so tied to public safety first in this consolidation experiment. The plan has me move under an ATS supervisor who knows nothing about wildfire in August during the height of our summer wildfire season. These concerns are shared by public safety employees in the city at all levels, and we have expressed these concerns repeatedly to ATS with no explanations, no acknowledgement of our concerns, and that is why we ask City Council to vote to hold city management accountable. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, esteemed council members. My name is Brian Weldon, resident of District 3, and I'm here in my personal capacity as an AFSCME union member. I'm here today to talk about cybersecurity. I just wanted to flag that before relying on consultants, management's word that centralization is the best way to improve this. It's important to understand that this is an opinion and not really established fact. Management claims that centralization is more secure, but the insurance industry often sees it differently. Centralization, as outlined in the One ATS plan, creates a homogenized network. In other words, if a hacker gets the keys to the kingdom in a centralized ATS, they have lateral access to the power grid, 911, and the airport simultaneously. Many cybersecurity insurance providers, which as I understand it, we carry after the 2020 data breach, they basically offer lower premiums for segmented, in other words, decentralized networks, because a breach in one department is contained and doesn't take down the entire city. So my question is have we consulted with our cybersecurity insurance carriers on this? Again, want to reiterate that centralizing everything under one ATS, as it were, increased the blast radius and could lead to higher premiums and uninsurable risks for critical infrastructure. Dallas learned this the hard way. A ransomware attack on the city of Dallas in May 2023 was made much worse by lateral movement of the cyber attackers through the centralized city of Dallas computer systems, resulting in the loss of about 21 terabytes of city data and $8.5 million in direct costs associated with mitigating the immediate consequences of the attacks. I'd like to thank the council subquorum who brought this item forward, and we ask that all of council vote to hold city management accountable to the greatest extent possible and stop the consolidation. Thank you.
Continuing on item C1, Marna McLean, Michael Hernandez, Lori Mitchell, Ben Sutterby. Please state your name and begin speaking.
Good morning, Mayor, City Manager, and members of the City Council. My name is Marna McLean, and I am an IT Manager Senior over Enterprise Geospatial Services in Austin Technology Services. I'm addressing the risks to operations for GIS support with this IT consolidation. GIS at the city is organized using a hub and spoke model. That means a central group in ATS, my team, manages the platform, licenses, integrations, and foundational geospatial data, while departments have subject matter experts in their field responsible for business-specific data sets and analysis. This is successfully accomplished using a mature governance model that has been in practice for nearly 24 years. GIS has one of the oldest, if not the oldest, operating boards at the City of Austin. The Geospatial Information Management Operating Board, or GMOB, is actively managed and supported by over 25 departments at the city. This board has collectively developed GIS data standards and policies and procedures that are practiced across the entire organization. The GMOB collectively supports a citywide GIS platform strategy while allowing departments to be enabled, working alongside domain experts in their field. Gartner has recommended that all GIS titles be consolidated into IT. However, it is unclear what data they are using to support that recommendation. Esri, the top GIS software company in the world, surveyed the top 24 cities in the country by population and IT spend, and none have all of GIS consolidated into IT. In fact, Esri often references City of Austin GIS as an example of organizational excellence. That is because GIS is an applied operational discipline, not a generic IT function, and is most useful when subject matter experts are closely aligned with their business unit. Thank you.
I'm Lori Mitchell. I'm a city employee and member of District 8. I'm here speaking personally as a member of AFSCME. And ATS is currently not meeting the encumbrance requirements as stated in the City Charter Act. ATS is in the bottom 1/3 of departments. How can ATS function at this level and anyone expect success of a consolidation of this size? The recent findings of the 3 executives who were guiding Oates are proof that we cannot trust that ATS is prepared for this enormous upheaval of the city's technical services. The executives brought by City Manager Broadnax with him from Dallas were fired for unethical and possibly illegal actions. There is no reason to trust the plan that unethical people created will treat our city employees fairly or safely. ATS has not shown that their HR and finance departments are ready to absorb 189 workers immediately in Phase 1, much less an additional almost 1,000 workers to follow shortly thereafter. It seems the city is following the standard operating procedure of throwing departments together and leaving them to work out the details later. This does not result in cost savings. It costs more time and more money to straighten out the mess created by the lack of responsible leadership. In the last 5 years, the City of Austin has had 2 other consolidations that have failed. Business process consultants in capital contracting and financial services were consolidated, and that failed due to a lack of an actual plan for success. An eCapri enhancement, a very important software package, was severely damaged, resulting in increased cost, not cost savings.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Ben Sutterby, resident of D4. I'm reading this statement on behalf of an Austin Technology Services employee who fears retaliation. I'm asking you to stop further department transfers into a centralized technology department because ATS is not prepared to handle the workload. The number of changes to this proposal in just a few weeks signals poor planning. No clear change management process has been identified. Even in this reduced one ATS model, serious risks remain. There has been no complete census of the contracts that would be brought under this model. We do not know how many purchase orders, invoices, renewals, or compliance obligations will be added. Yet staff are being asked to absorb all of it. No additional support staff have been allocated. The workload will increase, but staffing will not. That is not efficient. It is a guaranteed backlog. There is also no clear plan to train incoming IT staff on purchasing and invoicing procedures. These are complex processes that directly affect compliance with city policy and charter requirements. We have already seen what happens when this is rushed. During the October 2025 merger with Information Security, a department of fewer than 30 people, support staff inherited unresolved invoices and a surge of contracts. This led to delays and compliance risks. That was a small example. This proposal to move 189 people within phase 1 is much larger. Contracts can lapse. Services can be interrupted. The city can fall out of compliance with its own financial policies. City Council has authorized an external efficiency audit. If one ATS moves forward without proper planning and staffing, the result may not be efficiencies, but preventable violations. Proceeding now puts the city at unnecessary financial, operational, and security risk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor. My name is Michael Hernandez. I am currently an IT support analyst senior at Austin Public Library. I've been with the library for 2 months short of a decade, and I want to talk about how this consolidation is being sold to us as IT workers. We're being told that this is going to be an excellent opportunity for career development, and we get the opportunity to work with new technology that we haven't been able to, that we would like to. Mostly as a means to develop us as IT professionals. Let me be absolutely clear. I'm a library worker first and an IT professional second. I cannot, as a library worker, I love the library. This is why I've stayed with the library for so long. I could have, if I really was interested in developing my IT professional career, I could have done so already. I've stuck around with the library because I love it. I love its mission. I love its staff, and I love the public that it serves. If library IT is removed from the library, those services that we provide, those essential services that we provide to the public will be severely diminished. From my experience and from library staff accounts, every time we reach out to ATS, they have shown time and time again that they are unable to support our services. Let alone, sometimes they don't even know what our services are. So how are they expected to support us? Basically, we're asking you to vote to stop this as much as possible because it's going to hurt their community. Thank you.
Continuing on item C1, Brianna Garza, Frank Hereford, Michelson Tooley, Stephen Ray. Please state your name and begin speaking.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Brianna Garza, and I work for Austin Public Library. I'm here to read you testimony from an ATS employee who is choosing to remain anonymous due to fear of reprisal. As an ATS employee, it is shocking to watch our CIO continue forward with the plan to ram through one of the biggest reorganizations in city's history. As ATS employees, we have been given no information regarding oats beyond the oxymoron of being advised that it won't affect us, yet also to embrace change. For a CIO whose last email to staff said she believes, quote, that transparency is the best way to navigate significant changes, she's being surprisingly mum on what the actual plan is to incorporate X number of people into our organization. Instead of working with frontline staff, those who are directly involved in the daily operations, ATS executives have spent millions on contractors and consultants, outsiders, hired to follow orders and not ask questions. Yet as ATS employees, we will be expected to make it work. It won't be executives or consultants or oats contractors who will need to figure out how to implement their nebulous, flimsy, ever-changing plan. We aren't even given the courtesy of months to figure it out like they give themselves. There's just a looming, moving target dubiously named Day One. The apocalyptic reference apparently lost on leaders, but not those of us who know we're the ones who will be expected to carry the burden of something we did not ask for nor want, with the added insult that shuffling employees around an org chart does not save money. All of this is unnecessary and prevents us from our actual meaningful jobs. We ask that all of City Council vote to hold city management accountable to the greatest extent possible and stop the consolidation. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Frank Hereford, and I am a senior IT business analyst for the Transportation and Public Works Department and a member of AFSCME Local 1624. We must distinguish between two types of centralization. Centralizing software licensing, it's unequivocally good. It leverages purchasing power. However, centralizing people is a mistake. IT is a support function. Our teams don't just know tech. We know the specific business needs of the departments we serve. The city's various departments have made massive investments in our specialized training and departmental expertise and experience. When you pluck experts out of the field, you don't gain value. You lose that institutional glue that makes our data actionable. For example, take my team's Vision Zero data suite. The team isn't just programmers. We've become crash data specialists. Our work has helped Austin achieve a 38% reduction in fatalities and serious injuries, saving citizens an estimated $78 million in crash-related costs. I know that's not out of your budget, but it's out of the budget of our citizens, and that's the real point, isn't it? In contrast, the city of Dallas tried to replicate our program but failed. Why? Because their centralized staffing structure prevented them from allocating the specialized human resources needed for such a life-saving initiative. Mayor Watson, when you accepted Bloomberg Philanthropies Award for What Works Cities Gold certification, you praised our city's teams for using data to improve lives and foster innovation. I'm asking you now to protect those teams. Keep us embedded where we are proven to succeed, and so we can continue to keep Austin safe. We ask that all of council vote to hold city management accountable to the greatest extent possible and to stop this consolidation. Thank you.
Mayor and members of City Council, my name is Michael Santulli, and I support the work of the city demographer, managing projects like updating demographic profile dashboards with key statistics for the city, metro, and each of your council districts. I'm here today in my personal capacity as an active member of AFSCME. I work on an interdisciplinary team, and having an IT data analyst with deep knowledge of GIS and databases, as well as planner certification and contextual knowledge, is critical to our work. Management says many workers will stay embedded for a period of time, but that only speaks to physical location. The real issue is operational authority. Who sets the priorities? A worker can stay physically located in a department without direct accountability or without sufficient capacity to meet the department's needs due to dueling demands. Who doesn't love having multiple bosses and juggling conflicting priorities? I myself waited over a year for ATS to close a ticket just to integrate 2 approved softwares.
I don't want to imagine how prioritization of our work would look in an embedded but centralized model. If departments carry the internal operational risk and public expectation to succeed, they need meaningful authority over the technology workers supporting their mission. And how is this not more confusing than leaving folks where they are, enhancing coordination across departments, and improving technology governance citywide? My team led a multi-department working group to update the city's population and jobs forecast. That working group's success was rooted in analysis from our IT data analyst, proof that a federated model preserving department contextualized technology capacity is a powerful catalyst for collaboration between departments, rather than the barrier the city manager has told you it is. Embedded but centralized doesn't solve the problem, it creates new ones. We ask that all of council vote to hold city management accountable to the greatest extent possible and to stop the consolidation. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Stefan Ray. I'm an IT supervisor with Austin Public Health. I'm speaking today as an active member of AFSCME. I became an IT supervisor before the COVID-19 pandemic. Our embedded health IT staff was critical to the response, from development of testing and vaccination sites to systems for collecting data and publishing public dashboards. Austin Public Health saved lives. Health IT played a crucial role. Today, our embedded health IT staff support unique technology solutions, administer public health specific applications, develop data models to further health data integration, and push the edge with what AI can do for public health. For this, an enterprise-level IT structure built around a federated model is a better choice. A federated model allows the city to standardize security, data procurement, and application governance without moving workers into ATS. Embedded staff provide faster, more accurate, specialized support. They understand development, operations, missions, and risks. They've built specialized knowledge through ongoing interaction with everyone from executives to frontline workers. Federation improves collaboration by allowing departments to share expertise across the city. Give ATS a focused role in scalable service support, delivery, and governance responsibilities instead of forcing it to manage every specialized departmental need. Our community will not care if the city has a unified org structure, if services become slower, less responsive, and less specialized. A federated model keeps technology connected to the real world. Austin deserves a strong federated IT model that does not sacrifice the very expertise that makes our public services work for everyday Austinites.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Manager, and members of City Council. My name is Christina Tremmel, and I'm an IT Business Systems Analyst Senior at the City of Austin. I am one of the over 800 city workers opposed to the One ATS, and I'm here today on my vacation time to share my beliefs in a personal capacity. I'm here to highlight why the auditor's recent consultant contract management audit strengthens the case for council oversight in this consolidation effort. There have been 3 consultants involved in the One ATS project and the application rationalization project: Gartner, Loblolly, and Parsalvo. So far, millions have been spent, and none of them have proven the case that staff centralization is safe, necessary, or cost-effective. If management is relying on consultant-driven recommendations to justify OATs, it should meet the audit standards, and staff consolidation doesn't. We're in a post-Prop Q reality, and difficult decisions lie ahead. The application rationalization effort shows that when there's a business case, it can be demonstrated. For staff consolidation, the city still has not publicly produced return on investment, cost-benefit analysis, or clear savings models. The data provided by Gartner to justify staff consolidation is flawed, and we shouldn't let sunk cost fallacy result in even more wasteful spending, both in the continued consultant spending and in the thousands of staff hours that would be diverted away from critical city services to implement this consolidation. Thank you again to Council Subquorum who brought this item forward, and we ask that all of Council vote to hold city management accountable to the greatest extent possible and stop the consolidation. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Continue on item C1, Nathan Wilkes, Amenity Applewhite, Justin Green, Corey Erb, Please state your name and begin speaking.
Nathan Wilkes. Mayor and Council, my name is Nathan Wilkes, and I'm an engineer with Transportation Public Works. I'm here to talk about existing efficiencies and cost savings. We support making refinements to our current federated structure. I learned about federalism in grade school, federal, state, county, local. With politics aside, if the federal government proposed to absorb Austin's local government into their scope, it would be untenable. Span of control issues alone would result in our unique local priorities not being met. Governing would be top-down and services would suffer. This centralization would not be more efficient, it would just be worse. The existing IT federated model has been organically developed across departments in response to ATS's limited span of control to support department and work groups' needs and challenges. And you all in council know better than anyone we have many, many services and all the needs and challenges that come with them. With Prop Q and other budget pressures, the writing's on the wall. We're going to have to work together to get leaner and find ways to save money while delivering these services. Few areas have the ability to improve efficiency like tech and data teams, streamlining data and workflow and moving beyond existing paper systems. Without these efficiency gains, we will have higher FTE costs in other areas and over-reliance on consultants. I get excited about challenges like this, but meeting this budget challenge without tech and data teams on our side is like asking me to work without my right hand. The federated structure also supports effective teams to incubate ideas, have capacity to solve big problems, and build internal trust. I'm talking about both interdisciplinary data teams with developers, project managers, GIS specialists, and data scientists, and their proximity, team spirit, and trust to internal customers like me and others they serve. At TPW, investments in this structure have resulted in many process and efficiency innovations with more on the way. There are too many to list and go into detail about. One ATS would break up these teams and our ability to innovate and chill this momentum. Thank you.
Please begin.
Good morning, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of City Council. My name is Amenity Applewhite, and I'm an IT Supervisor Senior on the Data and Technology Services team at Austin Transportation Public Works. Today I will highlight the fundamental issues with the consultant report from Gardner that forms the crux of the staff consolidation effort. One ATS leadership accepts face value Gardner's assertion that Austin overspends on IT staff compared to its peers. They've done so without questioning whether those so-called peer cities are cities Austin should even want to emulate. Do these cities have service levels and resident outcomes that Austin should aspire to? For example, can these cities claim year-over-year reductions in severe traffic injuries thanks to their nation-leading, data-driven Vision Zero program? In other words, we're missing half the equation, the return on investment. ATS has now released an updated cost comparison that removes Austin Energy's OT spending, but does not remove the cost of their other staff. Austin Energy alone holds 20% of the city's IT titles and amounts to 29% of the city's budget, yet only one of the 9 comparators even runs an electric utility. We won't have an honest picture of our IT spend compared to these phantom peers until Gardner eliminates the Austin Energy portion of this analysis. Frankly, I'm not sure how we can take their analysis seriously at all if they're not willing to be transparent with Austin residents. Even without these adjustments, though, this means that the application rationalization on its own, up to $149 million, could bring Austin's IT spending down to the group average, which of course still doesn't take into account our IT staff or the workforce ROI. To the council members who brought this resolution forward, I thank you, and I thank all of you for listening. I urge you to pause IT staff consolidations into ATS.
Please.
Hello, my name is Justin Green, and I am the assistant manager at the Howson branch of the Austin Public Library. I am one of the 807 city workers opposed to one ATS. The city has been putting on a big old song and dance about listening to their workforce during this process, but despite workers across departments and titles raising the alarm, their voices have not been heard. 650 interviews conducted by Loblolly pointed to a strained IT workforce holding their departments together at the seams. Multiple department directors have voiced their opposition in meetings, memos, and emails. And of the 100+ responses submitted through the official 1ATS SharePoint, the majority of which were opposed to consolidation, almost all went unanswered. The city's response to broad, diverse, and deep concerns is, we're moving forward, so get with the program. So what happened to all the feedback the city received from its workforce? Where did it go? Well, look at what we found in the dumpster. TC Broadnax, you should know better. You can recycle shredded paper with the help of Austin Resource Recovery. This is why hundreds of city workers have put countless hours into our campaign to stop oats. We know that the official channels are worthless, so we sacrifice our time and energy outside of work, circulating our petition, putting on rallies and press conferences, and using our time off in order to speak with you and do prop comedy. I'm on vacation, but I'm not in Aruba, I'm here. We feel compelled to spend our time this way because we know it's the only avenue to having our voice heard. And it's starting to work. We're seeing some changes in the timeline, and management is shifting course, but only because they're feeling the heat from our campaign. It took this much for them to start listening to their workforce. Does this inspire confidence that the process behind perhaps the largest internal reorganization in our history has been legitimate, vetted, and ready to go? I ask that council oppose oats in its entirety from top to bottom, from phase 1 to the end. Thank you for your time.
Continuing on item C1, Ashley Kraus.
There's one more person.
Oh, sorry.
Apologies. Good afternoon. My name is Corey Erb. I'm a District 3 resident, and I use mapping software to analyze the city's built environment related to stormwater drainage and flood control. I want to address some claims versus reality. City management forced more than 600 employees. More than 600 employees into a 30-minute job interview. They're now on their third highly paid consultant to try to justify the Oates plan. You've heard that 91% of IT employees felt listened to. The reality is half of those survey respondents expressed a significant concern about the IT consolidation plan. We're now on version 4.0 of the Oates plan, but most of the tweaks were in the original Gartner report and only announced after workers from directors to frontline staff raised the alarm. Entire department IT staffs are still being consolidated in phase 1, including fire, EMS, public health, and libraries. The stabilization period and phases are not new. The Gartner report is fatally flawed based on bad data. Austinites are proud that our utilities are in public hands, water, electric, resource recovery, and have public oversight, accountability, and lower costs. Copying fully privatized cities will only ensure that that happens here. Good for the consultant class, bad for us. It's clear that when management claims to have taken input on the plan, they really mean that they've collected feedback after the fact that they've ignored or misconstrued to justify going ahead as originally planned. What we're asking for is one plan that we co-develop and truly collaborate on. From the beginning, we know where cost savings are, and we want to work together on this and future changes without putting more public money into private hands. Please forgive the very analog presentations. We're volunteering our time to be here. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you all.
On item C1, Ashley Kraus, Bryden Summers, Hayden Walker.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Hayden Blackwalker. I'm Director of Planning at Black & Motel, and I live in District 9. I wanted to speak today about the importance of good data and data-driven analytics in making impactful change in the City of Austin. Vision Zero projects have saved lives, and they save the city hundreds of millions of dollars annually. I was the chair of the Pedestrian Advisory Council back in 2015 when we first started having discussions about Vision Zero. At that time, the database the city staff relied on was limited mostly to a few notes from a police officer at the scene of a crash. When a person walking was hit by a person driving 2 tons of steel, the crash was usually listed as pedestrian failed to yield the vehicle. That tells us very little about what needs to change. Today, we have robust data that gives staff and advocates a much better picture of what is actually going on and what we can do to improve outcomes. We have data that shows before and after project implementation. Decision makers learn from the data that works and what does not, and we can iterate changes based on facts and data-driven analysis. As an advocate for safety for all people in the transportation system, I'm concerned about these proposed changes to your IT department. You need software developers who work directly with transportation staff to create these powerful custom databases. The 10-year Vision Zero report is an excellent example of how data is now tracked and how we can save both lives and money. I fear that centralizing IT services will make it difficult for Austin to continue to be a leader in implementing Vision Zero, where strong staff collaboration has resulted in measurable ROI and informed progress. Thank you very much for your time.
Hi, I'm Ashley Krause. When AFSCME raised concerns about the efficiency audit, you paused, and the ordinance became stronger because of it. Thank you. We supported that ordinance because we believe deeply in efficient and effective public services. We oppose reckless restructuring disguised as efficiency. Directors from all over the city have raised concerns about this proposal. So when the people responsible for keeping the lights on, the water running, and the planes in the sky are sounding the alarm, this council should listen. This resolution doesn't defend the status quo, to borrow a phrase from the mayor. It's just common sense governance. A pause creates space for analysis, transparency, and worker input before a high-risk citywide reorganization moves forward. You were told that there will be no layoffs, but CFO Van Enu stated publicly that reducing applications would eventually mean needing fewer people to support them. And when workers asked about that contradiction, we were told, quote, "The city is not an employment service." True, but don't we deserve empathy and honesty? You cannot tell us not to worry about layoffs while simultaneously describing a plan designed to eliminate positions over time with no clear outcome goals. Why haven't we been shown where the staff consolidation savings comes from? Is it because it doesn't exist? Where is it, if not from projected RIFs in future years? If management had produced a clear, detailed plan from the beginning, I would not be here to speak with you today. You and every resident in your district has been asked to trust a massive reorganization on the basis of vague promises and incomplete analysis. That is not common sense. As a manager, I wouldn't accept that from my direct reports, and you shouldn't accept it from yours. AFSCME has been here a lot longer than this management team, and we're still going to be here 10 toes down after they are gone. Every member of our union will remember the council members who had the courage to stand with us when it mattered, and that time is now. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm Bryden Summers, President of AFSCME Local 1624. We started this campaign 2 months ago by delivering a letter to the city manager demanding a stop to oats. And since that time, we have been thoroughly laying out the risks that are in front of the city. And you see that today with 22 people here at 1:35 p.m. on their vacation time to continue to make this case to you. I appreciate the seriousness of the council members that have been willing to address this issue. Our subquorum Velasquez, the subquorum with Ellis, Caudry, Siegel, and Councilmember Fuentes. Thank you for taking this situation seriously. We are aware of the concerns around the city charter, and that's why you went into the executive session earlier to talk through that. Have a discussion not in the public about this issue. But we're also aware that the city council has the ability to have oversight of the budget. And there is a way for us to move forward. It's going to take creativity and bravery from the city council. We can thread this needle, and that will be a compromise. We are already compromising by being willing to move forward with this as a plan to address this issue. Because we have been saying from the start that we must stop oats. But we are willing to compromise. Let's figure out a way where we can craft a resolution that's going to provide the oversight that's necessary to alleviate the risks while also providing respect and dignity for the city workers. We will not accept that you are making this a decision between efficiency or doing what is right to protect the risks at the city. You cannot say after today that you are not aware of the risks, and that liability will sit with you if this consolidation moves forward and it has negative outcomes for the citizens. Thank you for your time.
Mayor, that concludes all speakers.
Thank you. Mr. Vanino, if you'd come forward, Councilmember Siegel, I'm going to recognize you, and well, I'll recognize you when they get here.
Thank you, Mayor. I can talk for a couple minutes while they get settled. So thanks everyone for being a part of this conversation. This discussion item was put forward by Council Members Fuentes, Velasquez, Ellis, Kadri, and myself to ensure that we have a public conversation about the One ATS process, including a variety of concerns raised by department leaders, civilian employees, and community stakeholders. And to start, I'd really like to share a deep thank you to all of our city employees, your committed civil servants who are sharing your stories in public in front of the chief executives of this city. I believe you when you say you're not doing this, you're not taking these risks, you're not speaking out just to protect your own jobs. You're doing this for the best interest of the city. And our goal today is to have a public conversation with our CFO and ATS director to address some of the most important questions and receive as many assurances as possible that the city is ready to move forward. As a subquorum, we're very appreciative of the idea that One ATS is motivated by a commitment to efficient use of city resources. In particular, the application rationalization initiative, which could save many millions of dollars in future years. That's something we do recognize as essential. And we also acknowledge that even the step of reforming our software licensing and tech acquisition processes, that will require some reorganization of some employees. And the city manager's memo of April 29 does provide important information about the One ATS program, in particular phase 1, which would begin this summer. And so to start, and several of us are going to have questions, but I want to ask the CFO and ATS director to provide a couple clarifications on the memo before we get to the bigger conversation. And so I guess, Mr. Vaninu, I'll direct my questions to you, but if you could start by providing some more context on the 189 employees who are projected to be impacted by phase 1, including the types of jobs these folks do and why they are included in the first phase.
Good morning, Mayor, City Manager, Council members, Kara Kaleki, Department Director for Austin Technology Services, and Council member, I'll address that question. So the first phase of One ATS brings in our information security professionals across the organization, our vendor management professionals, our business relationship managers, and our enterprise architects. We feel that this is extremely important at the point of doing our application rationalization work so that we have those who are involved in technology procurement support, as well as our enterprise architects that will be working with the stakeholders on the selection of upcoming technology or the rationalization of that technology, of existing technology. Our business relationship managers are a key link into our department areas, making sure we understand the business needs and business outcomes that we need in each of those areas of our organization. And information security and cybersecurity are critical to our city as a whole. Having that visibility up front as we visibility up front in our organization into matters around security are just foundational to managing the cybersecurity risk in our organization. Additionally, we have departments within the city where we already have very strong ties and supportive relationships in our financial services department, our human resources department, in our public safety departments where we already have a dedicated deputy CIO who focuses in on public safety technology and better aligning those technology resources into that organization. So either the alignment or we're working on projects to remediate items that were encountered during audits where we need to strengthen our relationship mitigate the issues and continue that management and partnership.
Thank you, Director.
If I could just add to
Yeah,
that.
go ahead.
I mean, that was, a lot of details, and so I kind of wanted to just zoom out a little bit bigger picture, as shown on the slide here. And we did see the message board post for a lot of these questions that were posted to the message board yesterday. Staff has put together some slides to just help to speak to those points. But from a bigger picture, enterprise-wide functions, these are functions, a lot of discussion about centralized model versus a federated model. These functions, information security, vendor management, business relationship management, enterprise architecture, which are currently to a large degree in Austin handled in a decentralized way, different departments, individual departments having individual roles and responsibilities in these areas. Whether it was a federated model that people wanted to see us move to or a centralized model, these citywide functions we would want to centralize into ATS regardless. So that was one area and one reason for putting these into phase one. We also view these things as being essential to really advancing and realizing the potential benefits from our application rationalization process. I mean, you can think about vendor management, where we have multiple departments managing the relationships with individual vendors. It's kind of hard to get to a consolidated approach to application rationalization if vendor management is still dispersed throughout the organization. And then the second big piece are departments that already have a very close and tight, not completely full, but a very close and tight integration with the Austin Technology Services Department. So one of the larger IT departments or IT functions on this list would be financial services, where there's about 40 IT professionals that support our enterprise-wide financial management systems, procurement systems. Those staff in ATS already closely collaborate. In fact, they're currently closely collaborating on a financial management system modernization process, and that process is being led, and the project managers are in ATS. And so there's already a lot of close integration between ATS and the departments on here. Long story short, we think these would be the easiest departments to make the transition from a decentralized model into a more centralized or federated model.
And just to follow up briefly, is this a final list, or is there the possibility that there would be additional changes before August based on feedback from departments and employees?
Yeah, and I think it's possible that this would change. I mean, this is where we are right now. I don't think there'd be a fundamental change to it, but you'll notice on the number of positions we put the words estimated, because built into the process is we've interviewed, and Carrick and her team have interviewed individual employees to understand what they're doing in their various organizations, leading to recommended assignments. Those recommended assignments are currently being vetted by our Human Resources Department. They will subsequently be vetted by the city manager and his team. They'll be vetted by department directors, leading to an announcement of here's your final, here's your assignments in the new One ATS department. So we think this is probably pretty close, but I did want to put the words estimated in here because as we go through that process, there could be some positions here, some positions there that we learn something about that makes us want to change the recommendation. These departments and these functions, I don't see those changing, but the specific FTEs counts could certainly move some.
If it turns out that some of the impacted employees maybe are more essential to operations and less appropriate for a centralized approach, that's something you will consider?
Yeah, absolutely, and we've heard some stories today that some folks are in IT job titles, but they're not actually doing IT work. They're doing more departmental specific work. So this whole vetting process is to ensure that we're moving the IT people into the IT department and not moving individuals that are in an IT job title, but for whatever reason doing some work different than information technology.
Thank you. Wanted to move to the comparables. Is in some ways, from the story of One ATS, I feel like it starts with this idea that other cities that are comparable spend a lot less on technology services. And I know you have some slides on that, but I guess the opening question is, please explain the comps that were used to justify the projected savings from One ATS.
So I'm happy to do that. And And by the way, I'm Ed Vanino, Chief Financial Officer for the City of Austin, and next to me is Karika Lakey, the city's Chief Information Officer and the Director of Austin Technology Services. We do have some of our consulting team with us in the audience. If we need to get down into some of the details, we have Diana Warnock from Gartner Consulting with us if there's some real detailed information about how they did their work. And then we also have representative from Lob Lolly here in regard to that's our change management consultant that we've been working with. So in regards to the comps, and I won't spend a lot of time on this. I think people know why you might do benchmarking, but really in Austin we use benchmarking and comps like all over the place. Departments go out and they benchmark their peers to improve performance. We look for ways to a pretty common piece of a efficiency study is to benchmark against your peers to see how efficient you are against similar organizations. In our regular contract negotiations, our negotiators go out and do benchmarking to inform what comparable agencies are compensating their employees. Human Resources does the same when we do market analyses. So lots of reasons for doing a benchmark. The key thing I wanted to say on this slide is I've never seen where there's a perfect match. And I don't know that invalidates, I don't believe that invalidates benchmarking, the fact that we don't have a perfect match. As you look at the city of Austin, the 10th largest city in the country, if you try to get a perfect match based upon size, services, funding structures, it's just honestly, there's not going to be a perfect match. So you try to find what are the best matches you have and what can you learn from those, from that information. I would say even for comparatively simple scenarios like salary benchmarking, you're not going to find a perfect match. There's going to be variances in the job duties of what that position does in this city versus a different city versus a different city. There's differences in cost of living between locations. Some places have various specialty pays that we may or may not have. Step systems could be different. There's all kinds of differences that make that even that simple analysis challenging, but nonetheless, we use those benchmarks to inform our compensation structures and negotiating position. The other thing I really wanted to highlight on here is that Gartner does, and as a Gartner client, I'm happy that they protect the confidentiality of their client data. So they have deep experience with cities and private sector companies across the country, and that gives us access to a wealth of information. But they are obligated to protect the confidentiality of the information that they get from their clients. And they do that for Austin, and I would expect them to do that, and they do that for the other clients that they have as well. In terms of the peer group profiles, though, we do know this, that Gartner put into the peer group for us 9 governmental agencies, 6 cities, 3 counties. 4 of those agencies operate at an airport. 1 operates an electric utility. On average, their budgets were a little bit smaller than us, $4.4 billion, and their FTE counts were a little bit smaller than ours, about 14,700 versus Austin's 16,400. So I think it's close. It's a reasonable approximation of the size and complexity that we have here in the city of Austin. But I also want to stress that on the slides to follow, they speak of the savings in terms of percentiles. So, if we are spending 6% or 7% and somebody else is spending 4%, that kind of taking a percentile approach adjusts for the differences in scale and size of some of these operations. Over on the right, they take a different approach. They call that their secondary peer group, where they're looking at 100 state and local governments across the globe. Again, just as a broader sample set, maybe less specifically alike to Austin, but a broader sample set. And the results of both of these are on the next slide. This one is just to show a little bit about, and I know that's hard to read, I apologize for that. But what essentially it shows is on the left-hand side are the different functions that the city of Austin provides, from animal services to code enforcement, all the way down to the bottom, transportation services, watershed protection. And in animal services, the first one on the list, 100%, all 9 of the peer groups included animal services. Skipping down a couple rows to the convention center, 2/3, 67% of the 9 entities had a convention center they operated. And so they looked at that across all of the city departments and gave an aggregate score at the bottom of an alignment between the city of Austin and this peer benchmark that they created of 86%. And then over on the right, the smaller table takes a look at the services that are provided, IT services that are provided, from infrastructure and networking to cybersecurity, application development and support, all the way down to the bottom being public safety and tech support. So what this is saying is that we have alignment with most areas, although only 2/3 of the comparable cities provided public safety tech
Mr.
support.
Vanny, let me just jump in because I know the mayor only wants me to, ask questions for so long. So I'm going to try to work through maybe 7 more questions. And if you could just try to, I know we've got the slides, but if you could just try to give the summary answers because
yes, sir.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of different areas of questions we have to get to.
Yeah, so I won't go through this slide then a lot. The key takeaways are, and this was, I think, an important one because a lot of people have been waiting for this. What's it look like when we remove operational technology, which is a shift we made to the process. And so this is the data that removes operational technology, getting a more apples-to-apples comparison with those other jurisdictions. And we basically see that Austin is spending 6.7% of its total operating budget on IT compared to our peers of about 4.2%. And then importantly, on the top right, you can see in our peer agencies about 80% of the IT spend is in the IT department and 20% in the non-IT departments. In Austin, we're about 1/3 centralized and 2/3 decentralized. So just want to leave you with that. And then this was the final slide that just shows that information in a similar fashion. But the green bar is an important one because a lot of people have brought up concerns on the benchmarking related to the utilities. And so this is looking at a Gartner benchmark specifically around utilities, where they identified 4.2% of total spending in utilities being for IT. And so whether you look at it at utilities only or our peer average is also about 4.2%, that medium gray bar, either case, those are both far below what our current spending profile is.
Thank you. And just kind of drill down a little bit pretty quickly. We'll acknowledge that some of our people in IT titles have non-IT functions, right? And so there's some, I guess you could call it margin of error or variance related to that aspect of our current HR classification system. Also, we don't know exactly how each of these communities identifies or defines OT versus IT. These are not generally, accepted definitions. And so, challenge these assumptions if I'm wrong. But I think one of the most important questions is if we separate OT, operational technology, from consolidation, does that impact the benefits of this program or the projected return on investment?
Potentially. It certainly lowered the numbers that you're seeing here compared to the original analysis. It did bring those numbers down. But we haven't done that detailed analysis to say excluding OT does or does not impact the potential savings resulting from the work that we're doing. We've just made the decision that OT is not going to be part of this process and are moving forward looking at the rest of the organization, and these numbers pertain to the rest of the organization.
So if you could share a little bit about how we define OT versus IT, and then also if you could give a little context for when you go department by department, will department leaders be able to kind of appeal or challenge these designations? How are you going to sort out, the idea that we have technologists in the fire department who also provide essential wildfire prevention services, things like that?
Thank you for the question, Council Member. So specific to operational technology, we're talking about systems that impact physical processes. So things in our water utility, our electric utility, things that have industrial type control systems within our departmental organizations. Specific to the identification of OT, we look to frameworks. So there are frameworks that were developed for this reason, for this model, for securing operational technology. We have the employee surveys that they provided along with the information that we gathered during their employee meetings, where we where, based on what the employees have shared that they're doing, we're able to look and see if they are impacting those physical processes within those departments. And that helped us to identify those resources that are truly performing OT functions. Now, this week, we're scheduling meetings and meeting with department directors to share our findings and validate that we have it correct, and hear other considerations that they would like to share with us about the process. And I know there will be some. I've had plenty of very good discussions with department directors on the needs around their departments.
So applying that framework to the library, the Wi-Fi networks at our 24 libraries, maintaining the desktops, that feels more clearly IT. But we have this whole online collection that impacts how people get books, and that's obviously a beloved public service. Would maintaining the collection and its digital elements, would that be OT?
It would not. Those are applications, commercial off the shelf or somewhat customized applications that we would need IT specialists to develop and support. They're important to the operations of the library, but it is not a piece of operational technology.
So those people would be withdrawn from the department, and then the department director, if there's a problem with the collection, people can't get their books, they kind of have to get a ticket? Or how does that work? Like, how do we make sure that, these customer-facing, essential programs and services of the city aren't kind of, lost or diminished in this reorg?
Sure. I want to make sure the concept of being taken out of the department, let's change the framing of that. People will report into Austin Technology Services. In many cases, they'll be aligned with the departments they're working on today. That is not always the case, but often that will be the case because we are maintaining domain expertise throughout the city. There might be some areas where your domain expertise is very aligned with another domain, and we want those technologists to work together and more broadly cover multiple domains, but the knowledge of the business is always important in how we deliver the technology. So we want to make sure the technologists are still partnering with the different business areas around the city so that we get the business outcomes out of the technology that we're all looking for.
To me, that's one of the most important things I've heard, that, we've got skilled technologists who are working for the library, not because they want to be a tech worker, but because they love libraries, right? Or some of these transportation and public works folks who probably could get paid more in private practice, but they're committed to Vision Zero and mapping our most dangerous intersections and saving lives. And so how do we avoid losing these committed civil servants who are embedded in these collaborative work environments, who are driven by the mission of their departments and didn't sign up to work, for a tech desk, right? They want to be serving the people. Like, is there a plan to prevent attrition?
So we're going to work through those items in a variety of different ways. First of all, the Austin Technology Services, that is our purpose, to serve the mission of the city of Austin and its departments. So we are completely aligned in that. And we know we need technologists who have that knowledge of the different business areas or have the need and drive to learn different areas of the business so that they can provide solutions that don't just serve one department. Maybe they can serve multiple departments. I really think that the focus here should be on the opportunity to learn more about our city and the different services we deliver around the city and how those things can be applied within individual departments and, once again, broadly. So as we go through the consolidation effort, we want to keep people focused in on the work that they're doing today, which we will do as they as they transition into the department. But we're going to start learning even more, even deeper, and making sure we have good documentation of the systems that they're managing and the processes that they're enabling. And do we have others that are doing very similar things in other departments so they have an affinity for working together and maybe working with sets of departments instead of just one department? And in terms of attrition, once again, I think Austin Technology Services is an amazing department. You get to see the city of Austin in all its pieces and parts. And so first, we definitely want to make sure we're welcoming people into the departments and know that they have a place here and that we are serving the city. We want to make sure that they understand that they will have support. We're going to have office hours, and we're going to have team building, and we'll have opportunities for people to get to know one another and understand the things that they're doing. We have change readiness workshops for the leadership that's coming into the department. We've started the change management workshops with the leadership in the department so that as we transition, we'll have those good conversations about the things that are identified as risk and those things that are identified as opportunities where we can work better together. Other items around, attrition in technology, as well as in our departments, there are many different methods that we try to address that with. We have great employee recognition programs. We have training opportunities so that people are understanding and learning the newest technology and can apply it in their departments to serve those business outcomes.
If I can just jump in, Director, because I think I'm on my last minute if I haven't exceeded it. Then I'll pass it to you, Mayor. If you could just share, in terms of service delivery for departments, how are we going to track quality of service delivery through these different phases? And to make sure that we're really, the libraries are still getting the books checked out, that, I guess in a future phase, it could impact parks and our ability to reserve a tennis court, or all these thousands of ways, the outage map for the electric utility. How are we going to make sure that we maintain high service levels?
Sure. So we've approached this from a do no harm focus. So if your service level is such today, it will be that tomorrow. That's why it's important that we have the technologists still focused on their departments during the transition. During the transition, we're going to make sure that we've documented that baseline work so that we can understand where those current service levels really are and documented by data so that we know we're meeting that and continuing to exceed that over time. So we'll be establishing those KPIs and performance metrics that we need so that we're tracking the effort for the city as a whole and have very granular visibility into how we are performing for individual departments.
If I could just add one thing to that. First part that Karika was getting to is about the concern about attrition. And I certainly think it's a valid concern that staff needs to be aware of and be able to respond to. I know we're trying to be concise on our answers because there's a lot of questions to come. I have a list of, half a dozen plus major reorganizations that I could think of just off the top of my head in the 15 years or so I've been with the city. I've never seen a reorganization that has as much detailed analysis, the length of a runway to the launch of it, as much communication, and as extensive of a change management plan that this reorganization has. And we simply have not seen major attrition or really any blip in attrition at all coming from other major reorganizations that involved moving parks police into the police department, reorganizations that moved information security individuals into ATS. I mean, there's a lot of experience with reorganizations. We've done this before as a city staff. We have experience with this, and we think we have plans in place and methods in place to address the attrition issue, and it's something we'll certainly be monitoring before we enter into future phases and adjust as needed.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Velasquez.
Thank you, Mayor. How will the future phases impact workers' wages, leave, benefits, telework, and seniority? And how are we planning for that? Sorry, I apologize. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. So of those things that were mentioned, telework is probably the one where there is the possibility of change. We want to make sure we're aligning to our departments. We want to make sure that telework is available where it is practical and makes sense for the business need that is being served. If I have people who are outfitting technology in a squad car, they can't telework. They have to be there doing that work on hand. But where it is practical, then we will definitely leverage city telework processes. The other items, no change to pay or benefits or seniority as people move into the department.
Thank you. One other question. What are the future plan phases and what departments and classification or processes will those affect or impact, excuse me?
And we have a slide for that. So there are 3 phases in the One ATS initiative. This first phase impacts 189 people in the departments as shown here. As we move into future phases, on phase 2, our focus will be on IT project management, the IT business systems analysts that support those projects and data roles. Those will come from across the city, inclusive of aviation, Austin Energy, and Austin Water. And then we will focus in on the technologists in the departments that you see listed here on the slide, bringing that total to, in the second phase, there will be 218 estimated people in this organization, this part of the organization. And then in phase 3, the focus is on Austin Energy, aviation, and Austin Water.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Ellis.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple questions. First off, about transparency and accountability. How will the city manager's office be communicating with the stakeholders, including city council, department leadership, and other folks that are affected by the process?
So there is a communications plan and change management plan associated with the project. There is a project intranet website, SharePoint site for all the individuals who within the city to review to see what's happening with the project. There is a communications form on that site along with the FAQ. So as questions are asked and we have responses to individuals, we can post similar information to the FAQ in case anyone else has a similar question. As part of the communication plan, there are memos that are being drafted to share with different stakeholders across the organization. And as we move into the 2-month period before people transition into the department, we'll be having employee meetings and workshops to answer additional questions and get people ready to join their new teams.
I appreciate that. I know we heard from some of the speakers earlier just about the communication and trying to make sure folks know what's going to be decided, when it's going to be decided, how much time they have to prepare for any changes, like when to drop their kids off at daycare and where they might be officing if they happen to change. And I think as much predictability as possible and as much information as possible that can be shared well ahead of time is really going to help folks out if there's any surprise transitions coming for things like workplace. We also heard from a couple of the speakers, they were actually reading comments on behalf of other folks that didn't necessarily want to come and speak or share exactly who they are and what their name is through this process. And so can you talk a little bit about a safe line of communication if there's needs that need to be escalated either to a department director or above their level if there are some major concerns that come through this?
Yes, so as part of the process, we're setting up a sort of a one-stop shop for questions, pulling together HR professionals, finance professionals, others within the department to answer questions and escalate issues. once again, internal processes, we do escalate through the chain of command. If we need to escalate outside of that chain of command, then there are HRD processes, or I'm sorry, our corporate HR processes that we would reflect on for those processes they have associated with MCS. I believe our HR director shared that our labor relations area could be involved if that is necessary.
Okay, that's good to know, because I really want to make sure folks, you know, they speak of fear of retaliation, and I know that that is not customarily how the city of Austin treats its employees, but really want to double down on folks need to be able to communicate what it is they're experiencing in their workplace, especially with such a large staff transition that is being discussed. And then can you talk a little bit more about being able to be adaptable through this process? What does it look like if someone does bring a concern up? How will their suggestions and their feedback be incorporated into any changes that take place?
I think a lot of that will happen in our workshops. So I will give an example that with our senior leaders currently in Austin Technology Services, we started with a high-level change management workshop talking about the things that are concern them and then the opportunities that are there. And then we've used and reviewed that feedback as we've shaped what this is going to look like going forward. Maybe concerns that from one manager, its span of control was going to be too large. Well, we looked at that and we addressed that within the placement recommendations so that we have appropriate span of control and that we have definition for the different teams and their functions. I think there's an assumption that as a technical manager, I do this function, so I just have to take all these people into the organization. We can have multiple leaders that are funneling into a higher level leader that lead teams of people that will address those functions. So we will take those suggestions and look at how we can adapt either our change management processes or how we're implementing the actual work processes as we move through that process. And I will say that part of those work group meetings is to talk about standards and processes. What are the good practices that are out in the department that we'll want to adapt into Austin Technology Services? They're not coming into the department with us saying, this is what we're going to do. They're coming into the department so that we can build good practices for the city that we can all leverage.
Oh, did you have something
Well,
to
I just
add?
want to direct, very pointedly, this concern about retaliation and just say that there is no retaliation that is going to occur to anyone in the organization for talking to us about one ATS. We appreciate our employees. We value our employees, appreciate the feedback and the input. So certainly do want to have a process like Karika laid out for individuals who just want to be anonymous for whatever reason and bring their voices forward. But I don't want to let this conversation die thinking that there might be some reasonable fear of retaliation. That is just not the case.
Thank you. I think folks are just worried and trying to cover all bases, but I know that we as an employer don't do that sort of thing. I'll close out my questions by just saying we've done a lot of work over the last few years about employee retention and trying to make sure that we're recruiting the best of the best and able to keep the best of the best here working at the City of Austin. And so I really hope as these conversations progress that we keep that in mind and don't go backwards. Because we've had to change some of our incentives and pay scales, doing market studies to try to be competitive. And I would hate to undo that work simply because of restructuring.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Lane, followed by Councilmember Cadre.
Thank you. I want to thank all of the employees who have taken time out of their work to come and share concerns both now and previously, as well as our leadership for this project before us here and also our city manager. The second set of slides I found helpful. I'd like to take a moment to better understand the phasing. And these slides have helped me already somewhat. But I've got a few questions. Can you walk me through what steps have already been taken to strengthen governance and strategy?
Yes, so as part of our work with Gartner, we looked at our existing governance models. I think earlier one of our managers talked about the governance model for GIS. That was one of the ones that they studied. And we've come up with a 3-tier governance approach, one very operational, technical in nature, another where we really approach the business problems that are coming through within the organization, and at our highest level, the city manager's office, the assistant city managers and deputy city managers, looking at and prioritizing key initiatives across our organization. Very important as we go through our application rationalization, we want to make sure as we actually consolidate and rationalize those applications that we just don't continue to grow. And so there's a commitment there to looking at the priorities for the city so that we are focusing on the right technology at the right time, so that we maintain that healthy portfolio of applications.
Thank you. I noted in the Gartner report there really was, I saw an emphasis on the need to strengthen those areas in order for there to be long-term success of this project. Would you say that that is complete, that work is complete, or is there more to do on it still?
There's more to do. Mm-hmm. We have a draft of the governance structure that we'll be sharing. Our initial draft, we got feedback from department directors, and they were saying it's too complex. So we went back and we consolidated some things to make it easier to navigate our governance processes, and we'll be sharing that out shortly. And then the commitment from the assistant city managers and our technology steering committee to help drive and guide the efforts during application rationalization.
Okay. Something else I noticed in the report was the establishment of a tech leadership board, an architecture review board, reestablishment of the IT governance board, creating the transformation program office, and then a transformation team. I'm interested to better understand. I know that our city as a whole once made more extensive use of task forces and steering committees. And I would like to understand what has been created in terms of committees and task forces that bring the different job responsibilities together in ways that can help guide this process beyond just these one-on-one interviews and the Q&A form.
Sure. So we do have multiple boards, some that you called out, enterprise architecture. That is one of the newest boards. And during this process and during the centralization, they're going to play a key role, specifically in the application rationalization, but more so in bringing the enterprise architecture practice together. We have a technology leadership board, which I believe will expand as part of this process. And so I work with the technology leaders at some of the larger enterprise departments on some of the key decisions. Once again, the technology steering committee at that highest level, along with our information security board, making those high-level strategic decisions around city technology. Those are 3 of the key boards. Once again, all of them established, but they'll grow and change and have a more focus on the items that will be coming in front of them in the next 3 years.
So as we think about communication and Councilmember Ellis's, for example, comments about early communication and that sort of thing, do you anticipate any other opportunities or for committee-styled input throughout the coming 3 years, or would you say that's complete?
Well, I'll say the change management process and the communication processes associated with that continue throughout the program, throughout each of the initiatives. So once people are in the department in phase 1, the communication continues. Everyone is going to understand what's going to happen in phase 2. We'll have those same processes and FAQs and forums for people to talk about the work that they're doing and communicate to us what's working and not working with the centralization effort within the organization. So I'll just say that's an ongoing discussion.
Okay. We heard some concerns around titles and mapping of responsibilities to titles, and certainly we've heard some examples of IT job titles not necessarily doing IT work, but perhaps also the reverse exists. I'm sorry, I may have just said that backwards, but we've heard a lot of comments around titles and their connection with responsibilities. And I'd like to better understand also if you are, how complete you are on that detailed work of mapping out the responsibilities.
So I'll go back to the employee surveys and the information gathering meetings where people detailed out their technology work. There were some instances where we said, we really don't think these people are doing technology work, and we're having those conversations and with our human resources department so that we can then have the conversations with our departments. For the most part, though, everyone had a substantial technology component in what they were doing. Information technology, very specific, big focus on data, also GIS and data, and under the technology umbrella that they seem to all fit. We will continue to have those discussions as people transition into the organization, but we do believe that each of the people we identified is a technologist and should be within the organization.
Okay. You mentioned that information coming through the survey data. Can you tell me a little bit more about the collaboration with HR and in getting to titles matching responsibilities that has happened thus far?
So I'll be clear that the people are coming over in their titles. So in reviewing what people do out of the surveys and the titles that they have, they seemed appropriate. And based on that, we have placed them into the functional areas of the organization that make the most sense. HR is reviewing those placement recommendations and will identify if they think there are any mismatches that we need to go back and discuss or to talk with the departments about.
Okay. On the slides that we received today, slide 15, which breaks down phase one, I see key enterprise functions at the top and then departments that are currently highly integrated with ATS. And I also appreciated the memo that we received that broke out, by week, what is planned in the coming months. And I've heard that characterized as extending the time we're taking on this work. But when I look at the list of these functions on page 15, it looks like a compression to me of stages that were laid out by Gartner. I'm just looking at their target state roadmap planning overview. And it really looks like what we're seeing here is a compression of stages E1 and E2 with going ahead and beginning departmental integration. And I bring that up because this is a very thorough report, and it has a lot of specific information around the types of phasing that will make this successful. And what I'm seeing here looks like, one, a compression of two steps that were laid out initially to me as being distinct from each other. And then two, a lot of the concerns that I have heard, they relate to the earlier stages. The title mapping, the having a detailed transformation work plan that's been both laid out and vetted with the department heads. And my concern is, I'm a supporter of this initiative. I think it's important. It will help us to deliver our services more effectively. There is a lot that matters, but I also really see that it's important to do it on a strong foundation. And some things can be compressed, but other things are foundational. And so I am concerned that it looks like compression to me, and that resonates with the comments that I'm hearing as well. So I'm raising that concern. I don't know if either of you have anything to share about that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate those comments. Specific to the compression, I think there are multiple ways to do a project and a program, and we've selected this method. Gartner has made good recommendations that we have incorporated into how we lay out the project and execute the project. I think the discussion around the transformation work plan, our focus is bringing the organization together so that we can have those good conversations and hear those concerns as they are within the department, within the work groups that they would be functioning in. I think it's important that as we go through that initial stabilization process that's from August through the end of the year, that people will be focused on the work that they currently do, so we have that continuity of service while we build out for those teams, those functional teams, what those key performance metrics will look like. And I think it is better that they do that as a team together than still being outside of the organization. That has been our approach.
Okay, I hear that there has been a shift in approach since what Gartner laid out. And I'm just going to elevate that I do find that potentially concerning, particularly given the nature of the concerns that we've been hearing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Kadri.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. And I also want to thank all the workers who came out today to testify. I have two questions, and hopefully they're not too complicated. The first question is, it's my understanding that the city's total IT spend was initially reported at about $449 million, which is about 7.6% of the operating expenditures. And if you compare that to the peer average is 4.2%. The updated figures that we see today on slide number 6 appear to remove the operational technology, so the OT, and it reduces Austin's total to $364 million. So almost, what is that? It's about $85 million. So it's an $85 million decrease and closer reflection of the true cost. So is it correct to state that with further refinement of the IT spend estimate, is that why it was lowered from 449 to 364?
So there were two elements. So the initial IT spend was all technology, both IT and OT, and it was developed on the projected budget. They've gone back and adjusted that for actuals and removed the OT spend.
Got it. And then my second question, and this is also going off of the slide deck, given that Austin operates both an airport and a utility, which many peer cities don't do, is it possible to provide a comparison based on general fund expenditures only to ensure a more consistent kind of baseline across cities?
That would be a different level of analysis. I think we would have to look for peer cities that only had those general fund functions then. So I think it would change our benchmark cities. And I might ask Diana from Gartner if there are other ideas on how to make that adjustment.
Hi, everyone. Diana Warnick with Gartner Consulting. I think we need to restate the purpose of a benchmark. The purpose of a benchmark is to give you insights into where you have opportunities to optimize. Like Ed said at the beginning, no benchmark has a perfect one-to-one peer-to-peer comparison to it. And if you want to scroll back to the slide that has the bar chart, there were multiple ways that we were looking at what are, the financial part of the business case for change. we've done extensive work in phase 2 to make sure that we worked with the 5 largest IT spending departments in the city to remove operational technology from the spend, which all Gartner benchmarks remove operational technology for an apples-to-apples comparison. When you think about the outliers of having, an electric utility, aviation, whatnot, that's why we also included these other comparisons where you can think about things at like a peer quartile point of view, also looking at the IT key metrics data from a utilities average or transportation. Across all aspects, the City of Austin is spending significantly more than peer groups when you look at various types of peer groups, whether it's the custom peer groups of cities or other ways to look at this from other industries. Even with removing Austin Energy's total IT spend from the overarching total amount of IT that is spent from the city, you're still at 4.9% above the peer group. And that's, I can pull up the number, I think it's $38 million more than the peer group would be. And that's not looking at a custom peer group without an electric utility, because the peer group did include an electric utility. The peers are not weighted. So even though there was only one, there still was a peer with an electric utility. And the peer data is not weighted in any way. So we don't skew things from one peer to the other. So yes, if I go back to the question that brought me up to the podium here today, there are different ways to do benchmarks. There's different ways to think about how to customize your peer group, and it's all oriented around what is your goal, what are you looking for. The question to Gartner was to look at things from an enterprise-wide perspective. How are we spending on IT across the city? Not how are we spending it for certain departments for certain reasons. And so we can do different benchmarks for a variety of different reasons, but what was asked of us was looking at things from an enterprise-wide perspective. And I know that's a long answer to your question. The short answer is yes, but I think it's much more nuanced than that to think about what's right for Austin.
Great, thank you.
Thank you all very much. Council members, I don't have anybody else signed up to speak. Councilmember Siegel, you're looking at me like you want to say something.
I was just going to close this out, Mayor.
Sure, go ahead.
And I just agreed beforehand to kind of lob a couple questions back to CFO Vinny New, just to kind of provide additional assurances. So the first is just basically that this is going to continue to be an interactive process with all the stakeholders. So I want to ask Director and CFO if you would reiterate your willingness to conduct this consolidation in a careful way that includes stakeholder engagement, to incorporate concerns from departments, staff, residents, and council, and in a way that course corrects as necessary as issues arise.
Yes, short answer is yes. I do want to just give a little bit of a longer answer that I think we've been doing that, and we have done that. We initially had different designs on how we would recommended rolling this out, but based upon the feedback we got, the concerns we heard, even concerns that we didn't always agree with, we did course correct. We removed OT from this process. We moved from an all-at-once approach to a phased approach. We built more time into the first phase of the implementation. So, people that have been concerned about this looming May deadline, that's nothing, we're looking at an August 10th go live date now. So building more time into the process as people requested. So we have adapted our process, and we will continue to adapt our process. I just hope that adaptions don't get thrown back to us as a failure of our process, because that was a comment that was made, that our failed process because we've changed things. We're changing things to be responsive to the concerns that have been raised, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you. The second question of three is related to something we didn't discuss as much, but kind of the difference between decentralized, centralized, and then what apparently is more of a middle ground, which is federated. And I want to ask your willingness, Director and CFO, to explore a more federated approach to technology services that is somewhere on the spectrum between centralized and decentralized, and that balances what what are obviously the benefits of centralization, for example, quality control, cost efficiencies, but then there's also benefits of decentralization, like responsiveness to constituents and commitment to departmental missions. So what is your willingness to continue to iterate and explore a federated model?
Certainly willing to continue to have the conversations. I mean, we have had a lot of internal conversation about that, a lot of conversation with our consultants. You know, we could have a different briefing and to explain why we believe a centralized, not completely purely centralized, but a highly centralized model is the best for Austin. But certainly willing to continue to have conversations with council members and department directors and IT staff about what a federated model might look like. So happy to have those conversations, but just want to kind of be clear in managing expectations. That staff feels that we've done that work, had those conversations, and that we're moving in the direction that's best for Austin. But would welcome a continued dialogue on it, and if we need an additional briefing to talk about those models and why we think centralized, what we're proposing is the right model for Austin, we'd be happy to do that.
And last question, if you could just share your willingness to continue to provide updates to council about this process through the phases, including challenges, successes, and outcomes.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Council, that concludes all the items that are on